In this video, we'll use buttons to guide the user to our use case. We'll also establish a place for identifying what the user wants in Freeform input. First things first, let's create the basic structure. I'm going to hide the emulator once again, and we could keep building on the right, but it might be annoying to have to move around all the time. Instead, we can use conversation flows to separate our logic. Let's click the plus icon next to flows to create one. We'll name it rover-pictures, and you can see it comes with its own starting node by default. We'll rename the node to grabDate, which we'll be developing in a later video, and we'll go back to the main flow. We'll create a node, which we'll call intent detection, to handle the user refusing our suggestions and to detect freeform input. Before I forget, let's create a new conversation flow to handle all user input we couldn't process normally and send the user back to a safe place. Let's call it fallback redirect. And let's give its starting node the same name. Alright, back to main. We'll create another node called misunderstood, which will handle cases where we don't understand the user's freeform input. Now the final change I want to make before linking everything is to remove the suggest action node. I'll replace it with something called a choice skill, which, as the name implies, presents the users with choices. Skills are special kinds of nodes that are made to accomplish certain tasks, and they are located below the node icon. The other basic skills that come with Botpress help you call APIs, ask for and validate user input, and send emails. I'm going to drag the choice icon to the workflow to create a choice skill. Now we need to configure it. I'm going to pick the content first, and it shows create new single choice, which is a fancy way of saying a user picks one of many options. The reason Botpress asks this is because you can reuse the choices here. A good example would be yes or no, which might come up many times in your application. Let's create one. In the message field, I'll write the question, would you like to look at pictures from rovers? And in the choice field, I'll write, yes, show me pictures, for message and value. We could write something else for value, but I'll keep it the same to keep things simple. Next, I'll click the Add Choice button and add a choice that says, no, test out the NLU first. NLU being natural language understanding. Basically, it's for recognizing freeform text. Next, I'll select the Disable Free Text checkbox to force the user to click the button. And submit, then insert. Okay, now I'll just rename this to suggest action like we previously had and re-add the transitions. Now when the user clicks our yes button, we want to send him or her to the rover pictures flow. The way we do that is we go to the Transitions tab in the Choice skill and edit the user picked yes transition. Under When Condition is Met, Do, we select Transition to Subflow and pick Rover Pictures from the selector. By default, it will send the user to its starting node. We click Update and now we can see Rover Pictures appear next to the transition in Suggest Action. We'll do the same thing for the On-Failure transition and send the user to the Fallback Redirect node. Remember how we disabled freeform text input? Well, some chat platforms might not allow this. If the user responds something different from our choices on those platforms, the on-failure transition will be activated. For plain web chat, this shouldn't happen. Let's go back in the fallback redirect and add a bit of content just in case. We'll have the starting node say some text on enter. First we'll have it say, whoops, looks like you fell out of bounds. Then we'll create another one that says, bringing you back to a safe place. Making them separately ensures we have two speech bubbles. Finally, let's add a 2-second timer, which is a good practice. Let's create another action, this time selecting execute code and searching for wait. Wait requires just one parameter, which is the wait time in milliseconds. We'll type 2000 and confirm. To finish this off, let's go to Transitions and edit the Always transition so that it goes to the main flow. Okay, so this is a pretty reasonable flow to handle unexpected cases. What's important to note here is that you can transition users from any other node and not have to repeat yourself. Let's go back to the main flow and link up the final no transition from suggest action to intent detection. We can test this out real quick in the emulator. Let's reset the conversation and type hi. And we can see our question and two choices. Whenever you can, add choices since it's easier to click once than to type. Let's try no first, and in the workflow we can see that the user was redirected to the intent detection node as expected. Now let's try the yes case, and we can see a go to next workflow button appears, which sends us to the rover pictures flow, also as expected. Now that we're done with suggesting an action, let's focus on handling freeform input. Let's create a text action in the intent detection node to suggest the user our use case again. This time we'll use the alternates button to add different versions of our suggestion, and I'll add snippets in the video description. We'll have it say, great, try writing something like show me Mars Rover pictures from February 5th, 2018. For the alternates, we can change up the date and date format to April 1st, 2016 and October 2nd, 2014. This can be helpful in making things sound less robotic. After adding the text bubble, we'll open the OnReceive tab in the inspector and check the Wait for User message checkbox. This will tell Botpress to wait on user input. Now an error message appears. This is probably due to us hitting the safety limit of our usage timeout. So if you see this, just hit refresh and relog in. Let's go back and check that checkbox again. Now we'll handle freeform user input. Since we've got to start somewhere, we'll only check whether or not the user wants to see rover images. To do that, we'll use machine learning. Don't worry, Botpress makes this super easy. Head to the Natural Language Understanding page. Here, you can see we are prompted to create our first intent. You can think of intents as just groups of sentences with similar meanings that we refer to in our flows. Let's click the plus button and create an intent called rover pictures. It doesn't have to be the same as the flow name. Now I'm going to add a few sentences and I'm going to add them in the description for your convenience. Alright, now that I've added them, notice how some are shorter, some are longer, and I've omitted the words Mars and Rover from some of them. I've also not added any dates. We'll handle those in a later video. A quick note, it's better to think of this as a work in progress. Your users are better at coming up with ways of saying things than you are at predicting them. You can always come back and adjust this. Just like we did in the Getting Started video, let's click the Train Chatbot button. Now let's hook up our intent to our conversation flow. Let's go back to the intent detection node and create a transition. This time, under condition, we'll select intent is, then select rover pictures. And when that condition is met, we'll transition to the rover pictures flow. After creating the transition, let's click up to prevent the always transition from bypassing it. Now let's create a transition from otherwise to the misunderstood node. In our misunderstood node, we'll just add a simple text that says, I'm sorry, I didn't get that. Finally, we'll transition this back to our suggest action node. Alright, now let's try it out. We're going to write show me Mars Rover pictures. And it works! Now just to show you this is using machine learning, you can see in the NLU page that the sentence I just wrote isn't included. Now let's try writing some nonsense and see if we handle that properly. Let's write, I want to eat an apple pie for lunch. And everything works as expected. Great! So that was how you present a user with a choice through buttons and freeform input. If you have any general questions about Botpress, please check out our forum. If you have any questions about the video, please leave a comment below.